The morning sun cast long shadows across the Chicago skyline as Adam Carter adjusted his tie in the hotel mirror. Today marked the 5th anniversary of humanity's first contact with the Zolaxian Empire. 5 years since the massive ships had appeared in Earth's orbit. 5 years of tense but peaceful relations with beings from another world. Adam checked his watch. In exactly 2 hours, he would meet the Zolaxian delegation at the spaceport. As one of Earth's senior diplomats assigned to the peacekeeping tour, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The relationship between humans and Zolaxians remained delicate, a balance of mutual benefit and deep misunderstanding. "You too look worried," said his colleague Diane Wells, entering the hotel suite they used as a temporary office. She carried 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Adam. "The Zolaxians requested Lieutenant Commander Drazaket join the tour," Adam said, accepting the coffee with a nod of thanks. Diane winced. "Drazaket? The military hardliner? Why him?" "The Zolaxian Council insists he needs to better understand humans. Apparently, he's been quite vocal about considering us too chaotic to be proper allies." Adam sipped his coffee and looked out at the city below. Chicago had been chosen as the 3rd stop on the peacekeeping tour because of its cultural significance and its successful integration of the new technologies the Zolaxians had shared. The anti-gravity public transport system glided silently between buildings, a visible reminder of the benefits of the alliance. "Let's hope he leaves with a better impression than he arrives with," Diane said. 20 miles away, in the suburb of Lakeside, Greg Donovan poured cereal for his 8-year-old son Noah. The morning news played on the kitchen screen, showing preparations for the alien delegation's arrival. Dad, the aliens are coming today!" Noah bounced in his seat, spilling milk on the table. His enthusiasm made Greg smile despite his exhaustion. Raising 2 children alone since his wife's death 3 years ago had not been easy. "Yes, buddy. They'll be downtown later this afternoon," Greg said, wiping up the spill. "Can we go see them? Please?" Noah's eyes were wide with excitement. "Billy from school said his dad is taking him." Greg hesitated. The crowds would be massive, and he had planned to pick up an extra shift at the hospital where he worked as a nurse. But the look on Noah's face was hard to resist. "I'll see what I can do," he said finally. "But no promises." From the doorway, Greg's teenage daughter Lily rolled her eyes. "They're just aliens, Noah. We've had them visiting for 5 years now. It's not a big deal anymore." "They're cool," Noah protested. "Their skin changes color when they talk, and they have 4 arms, and they can live for 300 years. Greg smiled at his son's enthusiasm. Unlike many adults who still viewed the Zolaxians with suspicion, children like Noah had grown up in a world where aliens were simply a fact of life. They learned about Zolaxian culture in school, played with Zolaxian-inspired toys, and dreamed of someday visiting the stars. At Chicago Spaceport, the sleek Zolaxian shuttle descended through the clouds. Its purple hull gleamed as it touched, down on the landing pad. Adam Carter stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, flanked by local officials and security personnel. The shuttle's door opened with a soft hiss. The first to emerge was Ambassador Telex, the Zolaxian diplomat Adam had worked with many times before. Behind her came 3 other officials, their scaled skin shifting through shades of blue and green as they took in their surroundings. Last to exit was Lieutenant Commander Drazaket. Unlike his companions, his scales remained a steady dark purple, a sign of rigid emotional control. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his 4 arms held stiffly at his sides. The ceremonial armor he wore marked him as a high-ranking member of the Zolaxian Defense Force, Ambassador Telex. Adam stepped forward with a respectful bow. "Welcome to Chicago." The female Zolaxian's scales rippled with yellow, a sign of pleasure. "Diplomat Carter, the journey was comfortable. We look forward to experiencing your city." Drazaket surveyed the spaceport with what appeared to be distaste. His upper right hand rested on the ceremonial weapon at his belt. Not a threatening gesture among Zolaxians, but one that made the human security detail tense nonetheless. "Lieutenant Commander?" Adam nodded to the military officer. We're honored by your presence on this tour. The honor is mutual, Drazket replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. I have been instructed to learn about human social structures. Your species' lack of proper hierarchy continues to puzzle our analysts. Adam maintained his diplomatic smile. Perhaps seeing how we live will provide some insight. We have arranged tours of our schools, hospitals, and community centers. Drazket's scales darkened further. Your approach to offspring training particularly concerns me. Zolaxian children know their place in society from hatching. Human children seem to have no understanding of rank or proper deference. Before Adam could respond to this problematic statement, Diane smoothly interjected, We've prepared transport to your accommodations. After you've rested, we'll begin the official welcome ceremony at City Plaza. As the delegation moved toward the waiting vehicles, Adam fell into step beside Ambassador Telex. I must apologize for Drazket, she said quietly. He represents a traditional faction in our society. They believe closer ties with humans require you to adopt more Zolaxian social structures. And what do you believe, Ambassador? Adam asked. Her scales shifted to a thoughtful purple blue. I believe differences can be strengths rather than weaknesses, but not all my people agree. By early afternoon, Greg Donovan had managed to rearrange his work schedule. Now he stood at the edge of City Plaza with Noah perched on his shoulders to see over the crowd. Lily had decided to come along as well, though she pretended it was merely to keep an eye on her little brother. Can you see them yet? Noah asked, craning his neck. Not yet, buddy. The ceremony doesn't start for another 20 minutes, Greg replied, adjusting his grip on his son's legs. The plaza had been transformed for the occasion. A stage stood at the center, decorated with both Earth and Zolaxian symbols. Security barriers kept the crowd at a respectful distance, and police officers patrolled the perimeter. Look at all the security, Lily commented, nodding toward the uniformed officers and plainclothes agents scanning the crowd. They must be really worried something might happen. Greg frowned slightly. It's just protocol for visiting dignitaries. Nothing to worry about. But he understood the concern. Despite 5 years of peaceful relations, tension still existed. Some humans resented the changes the Zolaxians had brought. Others feared their advanced technology and military power. Most, like Greg, simply tried to adapt to a world forever changed by first contact. Dad, I need to go to the bathroom, Noah announced suddenly. Greg checked his watch. Can you hold it until after the ceremony? No, I really need to go now. With a sigh, Greg lifted Noah down from his shoulders. Okay, there are portable toilets over by the edge of the plaza. Lily, can you take him? I'll save our spot. Lily nodded and took her brother's hand. As they walked away, Greg heard Noah chattering excitedly about what he would say if he got to meet an alien. Greg smiled to himself. Noah's world was so much bigger than the one he had grown up in. Whatever challenges came with sharing the planet with another species, that expansion of human horizons seemed worth it. As the time for the ceremony approached, he watched the security personnel begin to clear a path through the crowd. In the distance, he could see the diplomatic motorcade approaching. The peacekeeping tour had arrived in Chicago. Unaware that this particular stop would change the relationship between humans and Zolaxians forever, Noah tugged at Lily's hand as they walked back from the portable toilets. The crowd had grown even larger during their brief absence. People pressed against the security barriers, eager to glimpse the alien visitors. Hurry, Lily. We might miss them, Noah urged, pulling his sister forward. Slow down, Noah. Dad isn't going anywhere, Lily said, but her brother's excitement was contagious. She found herself moving faster through the crowd. As they approached their original spot, Noah suddenly stopped. Through a gap in the crowd, he could see the alien delegation mounting the steps to the stage. Their scaled skin shimmered in the afternoon sun, changing colors as they moved. Look, Noah gasped, pointing toward the aliens. There they are. In that moment of distraction, Noah's small hand slipped from Lily's grasp. Before she could react, her brother darted forward, ducking under the security barrier that separated the crowd from the processional path. Noah, Lily cried out, lunging forward, but it was too late. Noah had already squeezed through the barrier and was running toward the alien delegation, his face lit with wonder and excitement. On the stage, Adam Carter was welcoming the Zalaxian officials when he noticed the commotion. A small boy had somehow breached security and was running directly toward the delegation. Adam's heart sank. This was exactly the kind of unpredictable human behavior that made the Zalaxians uncomfortable. "Security," Adam said quietly into his communication device. But he could see the guards were already moving to intercept the child. Lieutenant Commander Drazket noticed the disturbance before any of the other Zalaxians. His scales darkened to a deep, alarming purple as he tracked the small human's approach. In Zalaxian society, such a breach of protocol was unthinkable. No Zalaxian child would dare approach high officials without permission and proper ceremony. Noah didn't see the security guards moving to intercept him. His eyes were fixed on the magnificent aliens ahead. He had seen pictures and videos, but nothing compared to seeing real Zalaxians up close. Their shimmer, their height, their forearms. Everything about them fascinated him. "Hello?" Noah called out, waving his arm as he ran. "I just wanted to—" He never finished his sentence. As Noah reached the bottom of the steps, his foot caught on the edge of the bottom stair. He stumbled forward, arms flailing, and crashed directly into Lieutenant Commander Drazaket's lower legs. Time seemed to slow down. The Zalaxian officer looked down at the small human clinging to his ceremonial armor. In that moment, Drazket acted on instinct and training. In Zalaxian culture, children who violated rules of conduct received immediate correction. Without hesitation, Drazket swung one of his forearms, striking Noah across the face with the back of his armored hand. The blow knocked Noah to the ground. The sound of it, the sharp crack of alien armor against human flesh, echoed across the suddenly silent plaza. For one terrible moment, no one moved. Noah lay on the ground, blood streaming from his nose and a cut on his cheek. Then the child began to wail, a sound of pain and confusion that broke the frozen tableau. Greg Donovan, who had been searching frantically for his children, pushed through the stunned crowd just in time to see the alien strike his son. With a cry of rage and fear, he vaulted over the security barrier and ran to Noah, dropping to his knees beside the injured boy. "Noah! Oh God, Noah!" Greg gathered his sobbing child into his arms, one hand pressing against the bleeding cut on Noah's cheek. Security personnel surrounded them instantly, some forming a protective circle around the father and son, others moving to contain the Zalaxian delegation. The crowd's silence had erupted into shouts of anger and fear. On stage, Adam Carter moved quickly to reach Drazaket, who stood rigid, his scales now a mottled pattern of purple and green, confusion mixed with anger. "What is happening?" Drazket demanded. "Why are these humans reacting this way?" The child violated protocol. Correction was required. Adam struggled to keep his own anger in check. "Lieutenant Commander, humans do not strike children. Ever. It is one of our strongest taboos." Ambassador Telek stepped forward, her scales pale with alarm. "Diplomat Carter, there appears to be a serious misunderstanding. In our culture, physical correction of young ones who break rules is normal and expected." Adam looked past her to where medical personnel had now reached Greg and Noah. The child's cries had softened to whimpers as a paramedic examined his injuries. Greg's face was a mask of protective fury as he looked up at the aliens who had hurt his son. "Normal in your culture or not, Ambassador, what just happened is a diplomatic crisis," Adam said grimly. "I suggest we move the delegation to a secure location immediately." News cameras had captured everything. Within minutes, video of the alien officer striking a human child was spreading across the globe. In living rooms, offices, and public spaces around the world, humans watched in horror as one of their children was struck by an alien visitor. As paramedics loaded Noah onto a stretcher, Greg refused to leave his son's side. Lily had been escorted through the security barriers and now stood beside her father, crying quietly. "Sir, we need to transport your son to the hospital for assessment," a paramedic told Greg. "You can ride with him?" Greg nodded, his eyes never leaving Noah's face. The boy's cheek was swelling rapidly and the cut near his eye would need stitches. "Dad," Noah whispered, his voice shaky. "Why did the alien hit me? I just wanted to say hello." Greg swallowed hard. He didn't understand. "Noah, some people from different places have different ideas about how to treat kids, but he was wrong to hit you. Very wrong." As they moved toward the ambulance, Greg looked back at the stage. The Zalaxian delegation was being hurried away by security forces, surrounded by a phalanx of guards. The peaceful ceremony had been destroyed, in an instant of cultural misunderstanding. In the secure room beneath City Hall where the delegation had been taken, Drazket paced in agitation. His scales flickered between dark colors of confusion and anger. "I do not understand this reaction," he said to Ambassador Telex. "The child violated security protocols. He showed no respect for rank or position. A minor correction was applied." Ambassador Telex's scales had settled into a troubled blue. "Lieutenant Commander, I fear we have made a grave error. Humans have very different attitudes toward their young. What you consider a minor correction, they view as violence against their most vulnerable members." "That is absurd," Drazket countered. "How do they maintain order without correction? How do their young learn proper behavior?" Before the ambassador could respond, Adam Carter entered the room. His face was tight with controlled anger. "The boy's name is Noah Donovan," he said without preamble. "He's 8 years old, he has a broken cheekbone, a concussion, and needed 7 stitches near his eye. His father wants to know why a trained military officer felt it necessary to strike a child with enough force to cause these injuries." Drazket's scales darkened further. "The force was appropriate for a Zalaxian child, perhaps," Adam interrupted. "But human children are physically more fragile than yours, and more importantly, in human society, no one has the right to strike another person's child. No one." As the implications sank in, Ambassador Telex stepped forward. "What can we do to address this situation, Diplomat Carter?" Adam looked between the two aliens. "First, understand that what happened today has been broadcast worldwide. Right now, humans everywhere are seeing one of your officers strike a child. The peacekeeping tour is effectively over. What happens next will depend on how your government responds to this incident." Outside in the city, as the ambulance carrying Noah sped toward the hospital, crowds were already beginning to gather. Signs appeared with hastily written messages. "Protect our children and no peace without respect." The incident that would reshape human-Zalaxian relations had only just begun. Night fell over Chicago as the city buzzed with tension. Outside the hospital where Noah Donovan was being treated, news crews set up their equipment. The story had spread globally within hours. On every screen across the planet, people watched the footage of the alien officer striking the small boy. Inside the hospital, Greg sat beside Noah's bed, gently holding his son's hand. Noah had fallen asleep after doctors gave him medicine for pain. His small face was swollen and bruised. A white bandage covered the stitches near his eye. Lily sat in a chair by the window, looking out at the gathering crowd below. "Dad, there are so many people out there," she said quietly. Greg nodded. His phone had been ringing constantly with calls from reporters, government officials, and concerned friends. He had turned it off an hour ago, unable to deal with the attention while worrying about his son. A soft knock at the door made both Greg and Lily look up. A woman in a neat business suit entered, her expression serious but kind. "Mr. Donovan, I'm Michelle Lopez, senior diplomat with the Department of State. May I speak with you for a moment?" Greg reluctantly released Noah's hand and stepped into the hallway with the diplomat. "How is your son?" Michelle asked. "He'll heal," Greg said, his voice tight with emotion. "The doctors say there's no permanent damage, but he'll have some scarring." Michelle nodded. "Mr. Donovan, I want you to know that the highest levels of government are involved in responding to this incident. The President has spoken directly with the Zalaxian High Council." Greg crossed his arms. "And? What are they saying about an alien officer hitting my 8-year-old son?" "That's why I'm here," Michelle said carefully. "The Zalaxians have requested a meeting. They want to explain their perspective." Greg's jaw tightened. "Their perspective? My son has a broken cheekbone because one of their officers couldn't control himself. I understand your anger, Michelle said. Believe me, I share it. But this situation could determine the future of human-Zolaxian relations. If we can resolve this peacefully. Greg looked back through the door at his sleeping child. What exactly are they asking for? A meeting. Tomorrow morning. Lieutenant Commander Drazket and Ambassador Telex wish to speak with you, under strict security, of course. Greg was silent for a long moment. I'll think about it, he finally said. Across the city in the secure compound where the Zolaxian delegation had been moved, Ambassador Telex faced a communication screen. The stern face of Counselor Vrax, head of the Zolaxian High Council, filled the display. This situation is unacceptable, Counselor Vrax said, his scales a cold blue of displeasure. Lieutenant Commander Drazket acted according to our customs. With respect, Counselor, Ambassador Telex replied. Human customs regarding their offspring are very different from ours. What Drazket did is considered a serious offense in their society. Their customs are irrelevant, Vrax dismissed. The child violated security protocols. The lieutenant commander applied appropriate correction. Ambassador Telex's scales shifted to a troubled purple. The humans do not see it as correction. They see it as violence against their young. Already there are protests forming outside our embassies on Earth. The counselor's scales darkened. Are you suggesting we apologize for maintaining proper discipline? Next, you'll ask us to abandon our own cultural values to accommodate human weakness. I am suggesting, Telex said carefully, that if we wish to maintain our alliance with humans, we must understand their perspective on this matter. In another room of the compound, Lieutenant Commander Drazket reviewed the security footage of the incident. He watched again as the small human child ran toward the delegation, stumbled, and collided with him. He saw his own immediate reaction, the swift strike that sent the child to the ground. Adam Carter entered the room, his face showing the strain of hours spent in emergency meetings. The footage has been viewed over 2 billion times, Adam said. Military forces around the world have been placed on alert. The public is demanding action. Drazket paused the video. Your species is overreacting. The child was not seriously harmed. Adam took a deep breath, controlling his anger. A broken bone is a serious injury to us. And more importantly, humans have strong protective instincts toward children. We don't strike them for making mistakes. How do you maintain discipline without physical correction? Drazket asked, genuine confusion in his voice. We talk to them. We teach them. We use consequences that don't involve pain. Adam explained. Physical punishment is considered harmful and ineffective. Drazket's scales shifted to a thoughtful shade. In our history, such methods were tried and rejected as insufficient. Our young must learn immediate obedience, or they endanger themselves and others. Our research shows the opposite, Adam countered. Physical punishment creates fear, not understanding. It damages trust between adult and child. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Drazket's features. The child, Noah, he will recover? Physically, yes, Adam said, but there may be emotional trauma. Being struck by an alien twice his size is frightening. The next morning, Greg Donovan sat at Noah's bedside as a doctor checked his son's injuries. The swelling has gone down a bit, the doctor said, gently examining Noah's cheek. How's the pain today, Noah? It hurts, but not as much as yesterday, Noah said. His voice was small but steady. After the doctor left, Greg turned to his son. Noah, some people want to talk to us today about what happened yesterday. Noah's eyes widened slightly. The aliens? Greg nodded. Yes. The alien who hurt you wants to talk. But you don't have to see him if you don't want to. Noah was quiet for a moment, thinking. Why did he hit me, Dad? Greg searched for words a child could understand. Sometimes people from different places have different ideas about how to treat kids. In his world, adults hit children when they think the children have done something wrong. But I didn't do anything wrong, Noah protested. I just wanted to see them up close. I know, buddy. You didn't do anything to deserve being hit. No child ever deserves that. Greg squeezed his son's hand gently. That's why this talk is important, so they can understand that. Michelle Lopez arrived at the hospital with Adam Carter. Security personnel checked the hallways and surrounding areas thoroughly before giving approval for the meeting. The Zolaxians will arrive soon, Michelle told Greg. We've arranged a conference room on this floor. Noah doesn't need to attend if he's not comfortable. To everyone's surprise, Noah spoke up from his bed. I want to go. Greg looked at his son with concern. You don't have to, Noah. I know, Noah said. But I want to ask him why. And I want to tell him it wasn't nice. The adults exchanged glances, impressed by the child's courage. 20 minutes later, Noah sat in a wheelchair in the hospital conference room. Greg stood protectively behind him. Lily had chosen to wait outside, still too angry to face the aliens. The door opened, and Ambassador Telex entered, followed by Lieutenant Commander Drazaket. Both Zolaxians moved with careful precision, aware of the human security officers watching their every move. Noah looked up at the towering aliens. Despite everything, a flicker of his original fascination returned. The aliens were still amazing to see, with their color-changing skin and forearms. Ambassador Telex spoke first, her scales a respectful shade of deep green. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Mr. Donovan. And young Noah, we wish to discuss the unfortunate events of yesterday. Greg's hand rested on Noah's shoulder. We're listening. The conference room was quiet as Lieutenant Commander Drazaket stepped forward. His scales had shifted to a solemn gray-blue as he looked down at Noah. The child seemed so small and fragile in the wheelchair, his bruised face a stark reminder of what had happened. I am Lieutenant Commander Drazaket of the Zolaxian Defense Force, he said formally. I wish to explain my actions yesterday. Greg's hand tightened slightly on Noah's shoulder. Go ahead. Drazaket's forearms moved in a gesture that humans had come to recognize as indicating sincerity. In Zolaxian society, young ones are subject to immediate correction when they violate rules. It is how we have maintained order for thousands of years. Noah looked up at the towering alien, his eyes wide but not fearful. Did grown-ups hit you when you were little? The question seemed to surprise Drazaket. His scales rippled briefly before settling again. Yes, he answered. All Zolaxian children receive physical correction. It teaches immediate obedience, which is necessary for survival. Did it hurt? Noah asked, his voice small but clear. Yes, Drazaket admitted. But it made me stronger, more disciplined. Noah touched his bandaged cheek gently. I don't feel stronger. I just feel hurt. The simple words hung in the air. Ambassador. Telex's scales shifted to a pale yellow of distress. Adam Carter watched closely, sensing a critical moment in the conversation. Noah, Ambassador Telex said gently, stepping closer. May I ask you a question? Noah nodded. When you ran toward us yesterday, what were you hoping would happen? Noah's face brightened slightly despite his injuries. I just wanted to see real aliens up close. We learn about you in school, but I've never seen a real Zolaxian before. I wanted to ask if your skin really changes color with your feelings, and if you really have 3 hearts, and if you can really live for 300 years. The ambassadors. Scales flickered through several colors quickly. Surprise, understanding, and something that might have been amusement. You were curious? She said. Yes. Noah nodded eagerly, then winced as the movement hurt his injured face. I didn't mean to bump into him, I tripped. Greg spoke up. On Earth, children are naturally curious. We encourage their questions. We don't punish them for wanting to learn. Drazaket's scales had darkened to a troubled purple. In our world, such curiosity without permission would be dangerous. A child approaching high officials without authorization would face severe consequences. But why? Noah asked, genuinely puzzled. Why is it bad to want to learn? The question seemed to catch Drazaket off guard. His scales shifted rapidly as he struggled to find an answer that would make sense to a human child. Ambassador Telex intervened smoothly. Our world is different from yours, Noah. More dangerous in some ways. Our children must learn strict obedience for their safety. But hitting doesn't teach, Noah said with the simple logic of a child. My dad never hits me. And I still learn things. My teacher never hits us, and we learn lots of stuff at school. Greg looked at the Zalaxians. Noah's right. Our research has shown for decades that physical punishment doesn't actually teach children effectively. It just teaches them to fear the person hitting them. Diplomat Michelle Lopez, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. Perhaps this is an opportunity for both our species to learn from each other. The Zolaxian approach to child rearing evolved in a different environment, under different pressures. Indeed, Ambassador Telex agreed, her scales shifting to a thoughtful blue. Our homeworld has many natural dangers. Immediate obedience often meant survival for our young. Earth has dangers too, Greg pointed out. But we've found better ways to protect our children than hitting them. Drazaket had been studying Noah's face with increasing discomfort. The injury I caused, he said slowly. It will leave a permanent mark? The doctor, who had been standing quietly at the back of the room, stepped forward. Noah has a broken cheekbone and 7 stitches. Yes, there will likely be some scarring, though children heal remarkably well. Drazket's scales darkened further. This was not my intent. In our world, a disciplinary strike does not cause lasting damage to our young. Their bodies are more resilient. Human children are physically vulnerable, Adam Carter explained. Their bones are still developing. Their skin damages easily. A new emotion seemed to cross Drazket's features, something that looked remarkably like regret. He turned to Noah directly and lowered himself to one knee, bringing his face closer to the child's level. Noah Donovan, he said formally, I struck you according to Zalaxian custom, not understanding the differences between our species. I now see that this action caused harm that was not justified. Noah looked at the alien officer with surprising steadiness for an 8-year-old. Does that mean you're sorry? Drazket seemed to struggle with the concept. In Zalaxian, society authority figures rarely apologize to those of lower status and never to children. Yes, I am sorry. A small smile appeared on Noah's face, careful to avoid stretching his injured cheek. That's okay then. My dad says when someone says sorry and really means it, we should forgive them. Greg looked down at his son with pride and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. That's right, buddy, but only if you want to. Noah nodded. I forgive you, Mr. Drazaket, but please don't hit any more kids, okay? It really hurts a lot. The simple childish wisdom in the room was profound. Ambassador Telx's scales had shifted to a deep blue of respect. The humans in the room watched in amazement as Lieutenant Commander Drazaket, a high-ranking military officer from a species known for its rigid hierarchy, bowed his head to a human child. I give you my word, he said solemnly. Later that afternoon, as Greg helped Noah back into his hospital bed, Adam Carter and Michelle Lopez met with the Zolaxian representatives in another room. The High Council has been monitoring our conversation, Ambassador Telex informed them. They are reconsidering their position. That's encouraging, Michelle said carefully. What kind of reconsideration? They have authorized me to issue a formal apology to the Donovan family and to humanity, Ambassador Telex said. And they have agreed to establish new protocols for Zolaxian representatives interacting with human children. Adam nodded, relief evident on his face. That's a significant step. The public reaction to this incident has been intense. An official apology will help calm the situation. There is more, Ambassador Telex continued. The Council wishes to establish a cultural exchange program focused specifically on differences in child-rearing practices. They believe there may be value in examining alternative approaches. For a species as set in their ways as the Zolaxians, this was an extraordinary concession. Michelle and Adam exchanged surprised glances. Lieutenant Commander Drazket has requested to remain on Earth, the ambassador added. He wishes to learn more about human children and your methods of education. That's unexpected, Adam commented. looking at the military officer with new respect. Drazket's scales had settled into a calm blue. The child, Noah, taught me something important today. In one conversation, he made me question traditions I have accepted without thought for my entire life. Children often have that effect, Michelle said with a smile. They see things simply, without our adult complications. As the sun set over Chicago, news of the official Zolaxian apology spread across the globe. The tense crowds outside embassies began to disperse. Military alert levels were lowered. The crisis that had threatened to destroy 5 years of careful diplomacy was cooling. In Noah's hospital room, Greg read his son a bedtime story. Lily sat nearby, working on homework but occasionally glancing at her brother with protective affection. "Dad," Noah said sleepily as Greg finished the story, "do you think Mr. Drazaket was telling the truth about not hitting any more kids?" Greg smoothed Noah's hair gently. "I think you changed his mind, buddy. Sometimes people just need someone to help them see things differently." Noah yawned. "Even aliens?" "Even aliens," Greg confirmed with a smile. "Now get some sleep. The doctor says you might be able to go home tomorrow." As Noah drifted off to sleep, Greg couldn't help but feel that his ordinary little boy had done something extraordinary. Without meaning to, Noah had become a bridge between two vastly different species, teaching a lesson of compassion and understanding that all the formal diplomacy in the world had failed to achieve. 6 months had passed since the incident in Chicago. The small scar on Noah's cheek had faded to a thin line, barely visible unless you knew to look for it. The diplomatic crisis had transformed into something unexpected, a turning point in human-Zolaxian relations. Noah sat at his desk in his classroom, carefully coloring a picture. Today was special. His teacher, Mrs. Winters, had announced they would have a visitor, and Noah knew exactly who it was. "Class, please welcome our guest," Mrs. Winters said, opening the classroom door. Lieutenant Commander Drazaket ducked slightly to enter the human-sized doorway. He wore simplified civilian clothing instead of his military armor, though his imposing height and 4 arms still made him an impressive figure. His scales were a calm blue-green as he surveyed the room of 3rd graders. "Hello, children," he said, his voice gentler than it had been 6 months ago. "I am Drazket of Zolax." 24 children stared in fascination. Many waved excitedly. One small girl in the front row raised her hand immediately. "Are you the alien who hit Noah?" she asked bluntly. Mrs. Winters looked uncomfortable, but Drazket's scales remained steady. "Yes," he answered honestly. "I made a mistake because I did not understand human children. Noah taught me better ways." Noah grinned from his seat. Over the past months, he had seen Drazket many times. The Zolaxian officer had kept his promise to learn about human children, and part of that learning involved regular visits to Noah's school. "Today I will tell you about Zolaxian young ones," Drazket continued, "and about how Noah Donovan has changed the way our species thinks about humans." As Drazket spoke to the class, Greg Donovan sat in a conference room across town. Beside him was Adam Carter. Across the table sat Ambassador Telex and 3 other Zolaxian officials. "The Noah Protocol has been formally adopted by the Zolaxian High Council," Ambassador Telex announced, her scales shimmering with pleased yellow tones. "All Zolaxian representatives will now receive training in human child development before any diplomatic missions to Earth." Greg nodded. It still felt strange to have his son's name attached to an interstellar diplomatic protocol. "And what about Zolaxian children? Has anything changed there?" Ambassador Telex's scales shifted to a more thoughtful blue. "Change comes slowly to our society, Mr. Donovan. But yes, there are discussions happening that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Some families are experimenting with the verbal guidance methods you use with your children. The cultural exchange program has been remarkably successful," Adam added. 10 human child development specialists are currently working with Zolaxian educators on their homeworld. Greg smiled slightly. "Noah will be glad to hear that. He asks about it all the time." After the meeting, Greg drove to Noah's school. Today was another milestone, the opening of the first Zolaxian Human Cultural Center for Children. Noah had been asked to help cut the ribbon alongside Drazket. When Greg arrived at the school, he found Noah in the playground, showing Drazket how to play tetherball. The sight still struck Greg as surreal, his small son playing with the towering alien who had once struck him. "Dad," Noah called, waving excitedly. "Mr. Draz learned how to play. He's really good with all those arms." Greg smiled and waved back. The changes in Drazket over the past months had been remarkable. The rigid military officer had transformed into someone genuinely interested in understanding humans, especially children. "Noah is teaching me many things," Drazket said as Greg approached. His scales rippled with colors that humans now recognized, as indicating enjoyment. "Today I learned that play is also learning." "That's something we try to tell our educators all the time," Greg replied with a smile. They traveled together to the new cultural center, where a crowd had already gathered. Reporters and cameras were everywhere. The story of Noah and Drazket had captured global attention, becoming a symbol of how misunderstanding could lead to positive change when approached with openness. Michelle Lopez was waiting for them at the entrance. "Right on time," she said with a smile. "Are you ready, Noah?" Noah nodded eagerly. He was wearing his best clothes, and his hair had been carefully combed, though one stubborn lock already stuck up at the back of his head. On the small stage set up for the ceremony, several important officials waited. Ambassador Telex stood beside the mayor of Chicago. Adam Carter chatted with a representative from the United Nations. "This center is the first of 12 planned facilities around the world," the mayor announced to the crowd. "Here, human and Zolaxian children will learn together, play together, and grow together in understanding." When it was time to cut the ribbon, Noah stepped forward with Drazket. A special pair of scissors had been created that both could hold. Together, Noah with his two hands, Drazket with his lower set of arms. "Ready?" Noah asked, looking up at his alien friend. "Ready," Drazket confirmed, his scales a bright, happy yellow. Together they cut the ribbon. The crowd applauded and cameras flashed. Noah grinned broadly, no longer self-conscious about the small scar on his cheek. In fact, he had come to see it as something special, a reminder of how one mistake had led to something good. Inside the new center, children from local schools were already exploring the exhibits. One display showed the differences between human and Zolaxian physical development. Another presented side-by-side examples of games from both worlds. In one corner, a Zolaxian educator demonstrated their writing system to fascinated human children. "What do you think, Noah?" Greg asked, watching his son take everything in. "It's awesome," Noah said. "Can I play with the Zolaxian puzzle over there?" Greg nodded, and Noah ran off to join a group of children gathered around a complex three-dimensional puzzle. Greg noticed that Noah immediately started explaining to the other children how the puzzle worked, information he had probably learned from Drazket during one of their many conversations. "Your son is remarkable," Ambassador Telex said, coming to stand beside Greg. In our history, we have a concept called the small voice that changes worlds. It refers to unexpected wisdom from unexpected sources. Greg watched Noah playing with the other children. He's just a normal kid who asks simple questions. Sometimes that's all it takes. Later that evening, as Greg drove Noah and Lily home, they passed a park where a group of Zolaxian visitors were being shown earth trees and flowers by a park ranger. Such sights had become increasingly common as more Zolaxians chose to visit Earth for cultural exchange, rather than just diplomatic or military purposes. "Dad," Noah said from the back seat. "Mr. Draz said that some Zolaxian kids might come to my school next month. He said they've never played baseball before. I told him I'd teach them." Greg smiled at his son in the rearview mirror. "That's great, buddy. I bet you'll be an excellent teacher." "Yeah," Noah said thoughtfully. "I think sometimes you have to show people things, not just tell them. Like how I showed Mr. Draz that hitting hurts." From the wisdom of children, Greg thought sometimes came the greatest lessons. What had begun with pain and misunderstanding had transformed into something neither humans nor Zolaxians could have imagined. A bridge between worlds built by a child's simple question. "Why did you hit me?" As they pulled into their driveway, Noah was already chattering about all the things he wanted to show the Zolaxian children when they arrived. Greg listened, marveling at how resilient children could be, and how one small boy had managed to teach an entire alien species about the power of gentleness over force. In the night sky above them, stars twinkled, some of them home to Zolaxian worlds where age-old practices were being questioned for the first time, all because a curious, 8-year-old boy had wanted to see an alien up close and in doing so, had shown them what it truly meant to be human.